you the ultimate prize for you to quickly turn your eyes onto what is very important. That 292 hash is the USSD code for the particular users of Zabu, and it's pretty much easier and simple for you to follow the prompts. That's that 292 hash for the MTN subscribers. That is the USSD code, because the markets open at 8:15 a.m. and close at 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. Do remember that these markets are only closed during public holidays and on weekends. So that's that 292 hash, and continue focusing more on your investment journey. Zabu says, my money, my future. All right, now we cross over to Berige Andrew, who is on ground to understand more of how impactful this particular US-Africa summit was to the African continent. Where are we heading to after this particular one? Where does this leave the African continent? And which position do we have with the United States currently basing on the same matter? Berige Andrew is on ground now to understand and bring us up to speed with more of this particular.
Oh, thank you very much, Joram. And today we are just down here at Garden City at the roundabout, trying to observe the atmosphere around here. It's a Tuesday morning, and as usual, as people wake up to go and do their usual activities, and of course to ensure that they do earn a living and for proper, living the best life, like everybody would really desire to live a very interesting life. Now looking around here, today we are investigating the aspect of the U.S. Leaders Summit, which happened last week, the entire week actually, where even our very own President Yoweri Museveni was in position to attend, since he's among the African leaders. But then we want to understand, what do people think about this summit? Will it be of great benefit to the economy of Uganda? The United States of America under the Biden administration are trying to put up ties together. I remember this is not the only summit where we see African leaders go to, but there is one which was called by the president of China, and also the one which was called by the president of Russia. And all these summits the African leaders have been attending, and they've been registering quite enormous success to the different leaders that have been in position to actually attend that. Quite so many African leaders got deals as a result of that, because if I'm not mistaken, the United States of America put aside 55 billion US dollars as a fund to make Africa much more better, to invest more resources in Africa. Remember, Africa is quite a great potential when it comes to, to mineral resources, but the lack of enough capital to mine these resources is key. But then still, ahead of the summit, President Yoweri Museveni went ahead to meet investors in Chicago. And of course, quite lots of deals were spoken about. We saw quite so many, regarding oil exploration in Uganda, how best, the oil can be really exploited. So we are getting to understand. Now, before I reached out here, as you can see, it being a busy street, not so busy as such, really, but, a lot of people are passing by. We tried to get in touch with some of the few people and try to get their opinions regarding what they think about the summit, its relevancy to the economy of Uganda. But it's quite unfortunate that many were not really willing to speak on camera. Probably they are camera phobic, but it's okay. But what we did, we decided to note down their views regarding what they think about the summit. And of course, they expressed what they think about such summits. But definitely, whatever I will say is not, they are not opinions. Like what I'm going to say, they are not opinions of Smart 2040 or my opinions, but it is simply the opinions of the people. I'm just the voice, the mouth of the different people that passing by here. Unfortunately, they can't speak for themselves on the camera. But when I sum up all they say about this particular summit when it comes to Uganda, majority don't even want to know about this. They think, nothing else will be put out, and most of this money is going to be used for other things, for other stuff. Probably they say the government doesn't really mind about their daily lives. So there is that deep frustration that you feel when you when you talk to them, when you interact with them. But then at the end of the day, what's your opinion regarding this matter? If you're watching right there, do you really think these summits will be of great benefit to Uganda in particular? It's very sad when we see the different African nations, probably some of the nations we could be in the same bracket, and even better than them, thriving from such opportunities, getting the different opportunities right. And yet in Uganda, where we really seem rich, we don't get this. So the people were really so stranded regarding these matters. And they're saying, most of these leaders, when they go there for their own interests, but they don't really care about. And actually, as we're passing by here, just the taxi person behind me just said, we are broke. I mean, you get to understand what the scenario is like here in Uganda. People so stranded. And the economy, the way it's performing, it seems to be really very frustrating to the different people. So you get to realize that it's really very, very tricky. Actually, having an interaction with some of the people, saying that, the economy is not down. Definitely, it's just changing. It's all about the mindset of the people. People saying that the president is not going to come and help you to fulfill your duties, despite the fact that he's in power, but rather you have the responsibility to ensure that you have a good life on your own. This was an interaction with someone on the street still. Like I told you, some majority are not willing to speak on camera, but we decided to actually deliver this information on their behalf regarding that matter. But then still, other people saying that despite the fact that the president met investors ahead of the summit, they really think this is going to be quite of great benefit. And regarding these investors, still when we are looking at here, we get to realize that some of the deals were secured. And I told you, like the oil deal, and and the people are saying now there is some positivity in that. Why don't other people see this? And definitely addressing the issue of corruption, saying that, it's not the role of the president to do this. It's the role of the different agencies that are put there to curb the corruption. It's all minds of the people, people sharing their opinions regarding this matter. Now, still back a brief background on this African summit, the Africa-US Leaders Summit. It's purposely, one of the agendas is to help Africa facilitate the 2063 intercontinental agenda. Yes, and this needs quite massive capital, massive investments. Definitely, that's why the United States of America decided to come in through and call for this. But then within still this 2063 vision, different countries in Africa have different visions, have different mandates to put up there to ensure that they achieve the common vision. That's for the African Union. That's come 2063. So you get to realize how this situation is like regarding this matter. Now, for the case of Uganda, we know the Vision 2040, and of course to ensure that actually one of the aims of this vision is to ensure that there is massive digitization of the country's economy, and of course, and so many other, digitization of the different sectors of the economy. As we see, the digitalization is a global move that is aimed to ensure that Uganda, competes very favorably regarding that, so Uganda transitioning to that. So all that is part of Vision 2040. But then there is no way that Vision 2040 can be achieved single-handedly. There is need to bring in other players, talking about the Union, the African Union. We have the East African Community. So that is very important. So that's why it was very important for President Yoweri Museveni to be a part of this summit. He's actually already back in the country and, of course, still running the matters as that. And we anticipate to see the fruits of this particular summit. I remember Africa being one of the countries that have the greatest rich resources regarding this perspective. There is need for an extra hand to ensure that there is that balance, exploitation and the resources, because it can really be saddening for when we look at these nations which have these very rich resources, but these resources are not exploited that effectively. China, on this particular note, when it came out to speak about this conference, definitely it felt a little bit like frustrated in that matter, because remember when we had to look at the Biden administration, trying to revive the relations with the African continent, the black continent. It wasn't the case when Donald Trump was still in power, because when he was there, he totally cut off a response of the foreign policies, the foreign financing policies of the different countries. So you get to understand that there was a distance between America and Africa. So Biden coming into is bringing this together. But then China, during that time, China had a certain influence on the African continent, and it had actually established quite lots of investment infrastructures, which were quite so many countries were benefiting from. But besides that, there was massive exploitation that was reported amongst these agencies doing this. So this in line prompting the United States of America to also come up with a similar aspect under the new administration to ensure that Africa's resources are exploited that's effectively. So you get to really realize how very important this aspect was. But then still back to the comment of China, it was that Africa has been made like a battleground for the superior nations to showcase their power, to showcase their economic dominancy, to showcase what they really have in that particular aspect. So we get to see, and now this is very, very important. And of course, the Chinese also are putting up so many investments into this country, Uganda. But the main focus this time around will be the U.S. leader summit. So anticipations. Now, still, when I was still discussing with some people, some were saying, there is going to be improved relations, like Ugandans traveling to the United States of America. Now, this is what some people are thinking on the streets regarding this particular matter. So they are saying this is not going to be in vain. Definitely something very important will be able to rise up. And all these opinions of the people regarding that, despite some being negative, at least we had a few people that were a little bit positive about this particular summit. Like I said, so many investments secured, deals. And what does this mean? Of course, improving the country's GDP and also looking at the livelihoods of the people, the GDP and the income per capita. So that is important. Once money comes in, the investment comes in, the people will be in position to get the jobs. The different manufacturing plants, the different processing plants will be in position to get the required resources to invest. And this will be coming back to the Ugandans. So I would still say the 2022 Africa Leaders Summit is still is going to be really a great success. That's according to the people putting up the views all together. But definitely, this will come across when we see that the funds that have been secured are being really used appropriately. Actually, I was interacting still with some person down here on the street, and they said, I think it's high time a government really got very serious regarding follow-ups, and also calling upon the public to really follow up, calling up the different stakeholders, the different influencers in the different government agencies, the private sector, agencies that's in the private sector, and also talking about the government agencies, taking the notice, the follow-up to ensure that once this thing happens, for example, we know that we secured this amount of money. What is it doing for the nation? And all these were opinions of the people calling upon the different follow-up agencies to really take note of these matters, because Ugandans are dying out in this particular aspect simply because of negligence. Yet the funds are being released in this particular perspective. So still, despite the negativity that the people were showing up, there is still hope that actually the country will be benefiting from that. Remember, the recent football statistics for the previous month, that's of October. Yes. No, that was November. Sorry. Sorry. It was November. Uganda's inflation was at 10.7%. And of course, that was a rise of 0.7% compared to the previous month. That's the October month of 10%. So you realize that was something that was very important to really consider into that particular aspect. So that really speaks volumes for this economy. What does this really signify? So such summits are of great importance to the country. Sorry. But above all, making sure that the funds that are secured are used appropriately and there is proper follow-up in this particular aspect. So you get to understand that's the situation like here. You know, people walking down here frustrated. See how the economy is operating as you see the movement of the vehicles. Of course, it always determines the economy. So that really explains the current state of the economy. And now we come back to understand of what relevancy is the U.S. Leaders Summit. And probably people hope that this will bring back smiles to the Ugandans, seeing that these U.S. relations coming back to the country, you know, the different investments that the United States of America and actually put into this country, being really of great benefit to the nation of Uganda. So that's what is transpiring right here as we are down here at the Garden City, trying to understand the situation, seeing how everything is really operating. No one actually was willing to speak about these matters. Some people are scared to talk about these matters, but unfortunately, well, still the economy has to move on. You know, matters have to be dissected. Discussions have to go on. You know, funds have to be accounted for. That's still something that we cannot put out of the picture. And I'm Andrew Barije. I've been down here on the street, down here at Garden City, trying to understand, finding out the different views. But the main focus was the African Leaders Summit, and that was 2022. And definitely, people gave what they thought was on their mind regarding this perspective. Negative, positive, well, it was all opinions. And definitely, I acted as the mouthpiece of the people to put out what they really feel. So this is what you can observe the situation like what is happening right here. Not so busy. This place quite a little bit calm. You know, it's festive season, and definitely we anticipate the best, despite the fact that things are not really moving like the way the people expect them to. But maybe we hope next year would be a better year. For now, back to studio with Joram.
All that particular insightful analysis, Berige, and can position itself well to get into such opportunities that arise with such summits that do happen. Of course, we do expect a number of delegates from different countries to keep on organizing such summits where African leaders go in there to pitch in for the African ideas, to at least see how we can tap into the investment opportunities that are present and presented before us with such situations. And of course, the US Africa Summit was apparently one of the key highlights of business and trade as well as political ties over last week, with discussions that are centered around how Africa can position itself to get more opportunities. Well, it was the same summit where the Kenyan President William Ruto used the advantage to at least seek for funding that will ideally help him sell stake of the state stake in Kenyan Airways to a viable investor from the aviation sector within there, to at least see that the Kenya Airways can get back on its wings and fly sustainably without having any challenges in regards to collapsing, and of course some of the payment grievances that have been shaping up Kenya Airways lately. And of course, when you look at that, it is exactly 8 minutes to the top of the hour. And coming up after this will be Financial Markets with Anthony Sebale. Do stick around to Smart 24, because after that, later on, we shall be having Uganda to collect with Fred Makubia, and of course, Skill Up with Naomi Mutumba. Not only that, though, we shall be having Jenkolila with Hassan Duga. Then late in the night will be Business Today. Good morning. Have yourselves a blessed day.
Smart 24, driving business.